Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're coming to us from here on planet Earth. My name is Frank Corva, host of this Fedi Community Chat. And today we have two very special guests joining us. The first of which is Reyna Chicas, the Bitcoin Training Coordinator, BTC for My First Bitcoin. She's coming to us live from El Salvador, and she's laughing at me because my Spanish accent is not as good as it should be. Reyna, good morning. So nice to have you here with us.
Good morning, Frank. Thank you. It's just that that's probably the best that I've had so far on titles, BTC at my
That's
first.
what I'm that that's what I'm talking
Thank
about. We have
you.
the BTC of My First Bitcoin here. I mean, that is no joke, ladies and gentlemen. You are in for a special treat today. We also have none other than Lorena, not to be confused with just Reyna, joining us, the LATAM community master for Fedi, the one and only Lorena Ortiz. Lorena, how are you doing this morning? Yeah.
Very good. As I mentioned before, even if I just like woke up and get a shower, I feel like so energized every time that we're in this live stream. So thank you very much, Frank. And it's a very pleasure to be with you right now. Right now, you're a lady that I really, really look up for in this environment of Bitcoin. So thank
Yeah.
you for being here.
Oh no, likewise, Lorena. Thank you for having me, guys. This is very exciting. It's very early, like you said, Lorena. We were just like with the coffee and stuff. So,
Yeah, we got the
but
call.
we
We're
are
not
a
even gonna hide it. Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's go. Yeah. And to Lorena's point, I look up to Reyna as well. I have a phrase that I say in my head when I want to say something mean on Twitter. I have a what would Reyna do moment. Like I think to myself, like, would Reyna say something like this? I'm like, no, she wouldn't do that. She's too kind. And then sometimes I ignore that thought and say the thing. And no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so ladies and gentlemen, let us dive in today to talk about the importance of Bitcoin education, why it's more important than ever. We seem to be at this very critical juncture with Bitcoin right now, where we're seeing all sorts of open source technology go through some tests, if you will. We saw what happened with Coldcard. And we're just here to discuss how challenging this can be in moments like this, because we're here on the front lines as educators, especially Rena doing what she's doing with My First Bitcoin, but what Lorena's doing as well with Fedi, teaching people about this technology. And sometimes it can be a little bit unsettling when the technology itself goes through these sorts of tests. So this is what we're mostly going to dive into today. Before we get into that, though, I just want to get people up to speed on who Rena is and the work that she does at My First Bitcoin. So, Reyna, maybe just a brief introduction about yourself, if you don't mind.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Frank. Yeah, I'm Reyna. I work with My First Bitcoin, as he says, like an educator training coordinator. I've been involved in Bitcoin education for several years now. First, as a beginner educator myself, and now working more broadly on how we train and support other educators around the world. We're working through different areas of what that means so we can provide even the best. I think after everything, and it feels like the last week on Bitcoin has been years. But even as we have evolved, I'm from El Salvador, born and raised. There's been a lot of politics going on here too. But I believe I'm still here because a big part of what motivates me, it's not just or simply teaching people about Bitcoin. We want people to understand money and Bitcoin well enough to think critically. They can ask their own questions, and if they have questions, then they will make their informed decisions themselves. I think that's the most important part for my personal view. And if they feel like this new information is something that they would like to, carry on and share on learning, then I definitely like, that's my passion. I like to provide training, guidance from the experience that I've had personally in the roles of My First Bitcoin, for the ones who just want to become more confident educators themselves in the future too. We all are tiny educators, right? We're all mini educators. We all
Yep.
start somewhere on everything that we do. Even if it's the first time that we're teaching someone how to send the transactions, we become an educator at that moment. So I want everybody just to feel more comfortable too. We've gone through the part of, just starting off in El Salvador. The project was born here. We're a more established organization now with a global view, which we want to do. And yeah, happy to be here too.
Yeah, appreciate that, Reyna. Thank you. And also, for those who are unfamiliar with exactly what Lorena does, Lorena, maybe just a brief overview of what you're doing with community building and education for Fedi as well.
Thank you very much, Frank. Well, I'm the community master for Latin America, so I'm in charge of all the field operations inside this region. I coordinate different strategies of education and approaching Fedi as a tool for different communities and users all around the region.
Okay, appreciate that. All right, so let's dive right in here. I had alluded to or kind of hinted at these issues that we've been facing. The biggest of which has been this cold card firmware vulnerability, which has resulted in a hack and a pretty significant loss of funds. Now, compared to maybe an exchange going down where tens of thousands of Bitcoin might get lost, it hasn't been that bad. But the hard part about this is that, especially for cold card users, they had done everything right. They went into self custody. They decided to take control of their Bitcoin and to hold their private keys. And then something like this happens where there's a vulnerability in the firmware, not the hardware itself, but the firmware, which is the software. And it just feels like a bit of a punch to the gut a little bit for everybody who has taught somebody about self custody and how important it is, etc. To both of you, to Lorena and to Reyna, your thoughts on this, and then sort of how have you been reflecting, and how has it maybe refined your perspective on doing this work as a Bitcoin educator? I'll start with you, Reyna.
Thank you, Frank. To be honest, it was what you said, like a hit in the guts. It took a little of time for me to understand, everything was happening. We were trying to contact friends. My partner also works in that industry, so we were trying to make sure that everyone was fine, and then helping people too. And eventually, after 2 or 3 days of kind of ongoing on Twitter and everything that was developing, it hit me eventually that it was something that I want to approach also in education. Not because all of a sudden self-custody is a bad idea, but it made me think more carefully about how we need to communicate the responsibility and the trade-off that comes with that responsibility. We tend to, preach about Bitcoin. I don't like to call it sell it, but we really need to make sure that it doesn't sound like we're selling Bitcoin. And now sometimes in Bitcoin, we reduce the very complicated ideas into, the famous slogans: know your keys, know your coins, don't trust, verify. Those ideas are very important, but we also have the responsibilities as educators to explain what that actually means. Even with the don't trust, verify, we came to a point that I was thinking for myself, okay, but at some point I did have to put some trust on this other party. It was not a bank, it was not a central bank, but it was still trust. And self-custody removes certain forms of trust in third parties like banks to store our money, but it doesn't remove the risk completely if we use a self-custody. So now with the Coldcard bug and everything that came after, we've learned in a hard way, you can control your keys, but you still depend on the hardware, on the software, the firmware, all of those things that, we don't really have the sometimes the skills to verify, like the quality of the randoms that created those keys, your backups, and on top of that, like I said, or unavailability abilities to use everything correctly. So this is what it was just so heartbroken too, because the users, it's not that they had exposed their seeds, they basically did everything right. They had everything on paper, the correct steps that we told them probably of what they should do, and they still lost those Bitcoins two weeks ago. So even like I was thinking early on in my self-custody journey years back, I used some of the first jades from Blockstream. I still like now that is a very beginner friendly as a first hardware wallet. But as of today, if I recommend that, I still have now to show and to inform properly that we still have to trust a little bit in the technology, in that company, in their capacity to do everything correctly. So I think it's not that self-Bitcoin or self-custody failed, is that there is no custody model that is without trade-off. So self-custody, the community, and traditional custodial solutions all place their responsibility and trust in different places. So our job as educators shouldn't be to tell everyone that there is one entirely correct setup. Because even when you do now, everybody's talking about rolling the dice. Even that part, you need to do it very, very well, or you have the risk of losing the trust. So I think we just need to keep encouraging people to ask themselves more questions even. What am I trusting? Why am I trusting this product? What can go wrong? What responsibility I am taking on by telling this to people? I think we all had this breakout moment of, I'm not recommending anything to anybody, and because it was very real.
Yeah.
So sometimes even to tell things, is this level of complexity appropriate for me to like share with people right now? I think that's something that we need to have more maturity on the way that we teach sovereignty.
Yeah, that's very well put, all of that. Lorena, I want to come over to you. So what we're doing at Fedi is a version of self-custody that we refer to as community custody. And there's some more, I wouldn't, maybe not more, but it's a little bit different than just getting a Trezor, for example, and then putting some sats, storing it in a UTXO with this signing device. So when you're now educating people about what community custody is, how has your messaging changed at all in the wake of this, or what have you in terms of your reflection on this moment? How has it impacted the work that you do at Fedi?
One of the things that highlight another way of making self-custody is the multi-sig kind of environment, right? This has been like a model that has been around for a long time, but not a lot of people actually do this until now, that they are really like thinking about this kind of moments where the vulnerabilities can appear. So in Fedi, we have this model of community custody that is basically kind of like a multi-sig, but is helped by the community members. So you don't have to trust in just one device or in just one person in our case. You can trust like in several different guardians that will help to custody the funds of the people that is inside the federation model. So this is something that can be highlighted as something that is very practical in security basis. And also to keep in mind when you are trying maybe to find another ways to make self-custody to help yourself with multiple devices, or in this case, with multiple people.
Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you, Lorena. Another quick thing, and I don't want to get too into this, and this is not anyone here taking a stand on this, but I think it's worth talking quickly about what just happened with BIP 110, not because we agree or disagree or any of that. We're not getting into the politics of it, but I think also there was a lot of information out there, especially on X and Nostr, people sharing their thoughts on this. And I think a lot of people found it confusing. I've been in some spaces in recent days, and some people were saying, well, this is what I heard, so I did this in response. And I think we're constantly playing this game in the Bitcoin space because there's no Bitcoin home office that's sending out the Bitcoin messages, right? This is a decentralized network. We're all Satoshi. We're all teaching people about this, right? It can be difficult in these moments. So when it comes to, I'll start with you, Reyna, were people coming to you? Were they coming to My First Bitcoin saying, what is this BIP 110 thing? Like, should I be paying attention to it? How much, like, because I would also imagine it's scary. It's like, well, then there's going to be a chain split. It's like, well, if I'd never heard that term before, I'd say, what's a chain split? I thought this was like my money. When now it's splitting. What does that mean? Yeah. Even for me, I've been here for almost a decade. You think about this and you're like, man, this is a lot of new terminology. What was it like for you to field the question? Or I'm sure you got some questions about this, but what did it look like from your angle, and then how did you deal with it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first, no, we didn't have a lot of people coming to My First Bitcoin with this because we teach very beginner users and students too. And then personally, I didn't really spend a lot of energy in this matter. It's just so easy to get carried away, honestly, and go comment section after comment section after comment section and just arguing and having like one side or the other. Sometimes even when you are not in either side, or you are in one but you don't like what even your side is saying, it's yeah, I mean, I think with Lorena we can actually, like, as a woman, I'm like, ugh, boys are gonna be boys. It's just I just let them, and so I think arguing on one side or the other one was just not something that I wanted to like do. So I had personally a little idea on how so it was going to go anyway, but it wasn't even a lot of the technicalities about it. It's just, to me, it was a little bit of logic. So I think this topic didn't particularly change how I think about educating Bitcoin particularly, but
Okay.
it's kind of similar to the way I see what just happened with Coldcard in terms of responsibility and in even being more clear with people about it, because personally always try to be careful on when we're talking about money this when we're teaching Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And so as a Latam, Latina, we always have these taboos and things, and you don't talk about money on the table and stuff going around. So you even more careful when you talk about money. And I think I not everybody needs to suddenly understand, every beep or become a Bitcoin developer, but we all need to tell them that we need to stay curious, we need to stay informed for sure,
Yep.
because we should understand how Bitcoin changes and who actually has the power in that process. Because even for me, as an educator for the last 4 years, I still had to go back and I was like, okay, what is this? What are we talking about here? And I had to ask my boyfriend to explain me more things because he's way more technical. And I kind of got it, but I was like, if I put myself on the shoes of the students that we get online, very beginner, they were not gonna understand this. And I think it's common to misunderstand that the developers control Bitcoin or the miners control it, or nodes alone control it. In reality, everybody propose and does their role. They just fulfill the role in the ecosystems. The miners produce the block, the developers produce and write code software, and then the nodes decide which rules are going to go. So I think as the users and the wider economic network is the ultimately that decide which Bitcoin they want to recognize and use. So from that point, I think it was really interesting. To me, it was super fascinating to see, because we saw Bitcoin exactly working as it should work.
Right.
Consensus won. Whether we believe a big part of the piece of that whole consensus and roles and players is centralized or not, I think that's another conversation.
Right.
But this BIP 110 gave us the very visible example of that, right? Like someone proposed additional consensus rules, then the nodes began rejecting those blocks that didn't follow the rules, and almost all the mining continue building on the existing Bitcoin chain. So when they only produced 2 blocks and then stagnated, and everybody kind of realized what was going to happen. So I think that was super cool to see that in reality, when we go back 2, 3, 10 years, we're going to see that this situation happening. And as of today, I've learned after BIP 110 what has happened in the past. I even had to go to the past. Oh, so this happened too. I wasn't in Bitcoin then, so I didn't know. And I think on this topic, my other thoughts are that we spend a lot of time telling people, teaching what Bitcoin is, but maybe in the future, what we need to also spend a little bit more time is teaching how the decisions happen in Bitcoin, how these things are going to change. Not super technical level for every beginner, but enough people that understand what's a BIP, that software is a choice, that consensus matters, and that nobody has a magic, just like update Bitcoin button.
Yeah.
So this don't trust, verify also has to become more meaningful than just repeating the phrase. But to me, that phrase has become a whole new layer now.
Yeah. Agreed on all that. Thank you, Reyna. Yeah, I think it's a good point. Sometimes we forget, those of us who are online, that not every new person who comes to Bitcoin is spending hours a day on Twitter or something along those lines. That's surely not the case. Lorena, as far as I think, to maybe summarize some of what Reyna says there, she saw some educational opportunities within this. And that's what I was trying to get to with this question. From your perspective, did you see the same thing? And I know you've been in Bitcoin maybe a little bit longer than Reyna, but I think, I think it's interesting. And what Reyna alluded to, I think she said in 2017. So then we saw the block size wars. This is when we saw Bitcoin split with Bitcoin Cash and other versions of Bitcoin. So I think you were around for that, Lorena. So did you have memories of that? And I'm sure at that time, maybe because you were newer to Bitcoin, that was quite confusing for you. Did it remind you of those feelings a little bit? Please.
Yeah, I experienced some PTSD during these days. About all the block size war situation, about all the forks for Bitcoin Cash, for Bitcoin SB, and all the things that were happening in Bitcoin when I arrived to Bitcoin. So in that matter, it was good to arrive at that moment because I was forced to actually kind of understand what was going on. Not totally, not fully, but kind of understand if somebody was sending to me Bitcoin back then, to really check if they were sending to the Bitcoin address or to the Bitcoin Cash address or what they
Right.
were sending. So it was quite confusing back then, but kind of like a tough lesson for me to actually getting a little more deep into what Bitcoin maintainers do, what Bitcoin core is, how Bitcoin is improving or not improving or changing somehow. So I think that for the people that have just arrived to Bitcoin, this is a tough lesson, but it's very important because other way, sometimes you're not like very interested in what a BIP is or how Bitcoin change or what like Bitcoin politics are going on, because actually that's what it is. This is like a consensus situation, like Reyna said, and all the voices matter.
Mhm.
So if you're not informed about what's going on, you cannot have an opinion about it, and you cannot have also a choice for your own. So for the people that is new in this, welcome to Bitcoin, a chaotic kind of decentralized monetary free system.
Yeah.
But it's very great to actually have this power to understand deeply some things that other way around I wouldn't be like understanding at all.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. So when you have some, we say like skin in the game, meaning like when you have some Bitcoin, when you have something to kind of, you have some money and your own time and labor and the value, abstract it away, put in this abstract form of money in this system, you're inherently a little bit more interested. So you're forced to learn a little bit more. And this was actually my next question. And I wanted to go over to Reyna about this, is that you hinted at this a little bit earlier. You kind of, you mentioned this earlier, Reyna, this idea of everyone doesn't need to know everything about Bitcoin. But the other sort of thing that you also want to do is leave the door open for people to learn more if they want to. And that's the hard part, I think, because you don't want to hit them over the head with like, this is how blockchain works, and this is how consensus works, and this is what Austrian economics is, and blah blah. Like we've all tried that, and it tends to just make people's faces glaze over. So you have to teach them enough to make them understand what their responsibilities are, but then also to hopefully have them become a lifelong learner and somebody who joins this network and also wants to, and I guess at the end of the day, defend the network, right? Because they have some stake in it. How do you strike that balance, Reyna? And how does My First Bitcoin strike that balance of teaching people enough of what they need to know and then also maybe hoping that they continue to learn on their own, and or maybe even also teach on their own?
Yeah, and I want to, like, before responding to that, Frank, I want to give props to Lorena because I think that's one of the situations where you would kind of just give up. Like, she came before, like when what she was saying, she got PTSD. I did put myself in the situations like, if I was joining just right now to the ecosystem of Bitcoin, would I have continued? Would I think it was just too complicated and life is complicated as it is? What would I have done to understand that? And the reason why I do is because that's how I can sympathize with other people of what they're going through and have a personal response more than just tell you this is what you should do. Because I cannot tell you what to do, but I can at least give you an example of what we've been going through. I can tell you someone's stories. I can tell you my story. So I think, and it's interesting because I've never really encouraged people to be part of the network as much as it was the first time yesterday when I had to teach one of the classes that is actually the name of that module is what is Bitcoin. And then we go through all the roles and the players. That's why I had it fresh, the miners, the nodes, the users, the developers. And to even be a little bit more empathetic on what everyone does and what we can do if you want to continue this path. One of the lessons I learned is that not everybody's going to be as enthusiastic or as excited as some of us get about Bitcoin, and it's okay. Someone's going to stay just as users. Some might just kind of move on. They're going to learn something like we do about other topics probably. It's like, okay, good chat, good webinar, next. So I think the way that we definitely try to make now become practical as early as possible and give people that more even context before giving them answers, making sure that they understand. And if someone doesn't understand money, doesn't understand inflation, throwing words like proof of work, the difficulty adjustment, or UTIC, so it's just not going to help. I think that's what we try to do with my first Bitcoin attitudes. Part of how we think about the curriculum, as you know, like we don't begin with deepest technical details. We start with the very basic questions of why do humans use money, what is money, what problems Bitcoin is attempting to solve. And then we gradually move into wallets, transactions, nodes, mining, all of that, all of those concepts. So although the current Bitcoin diploma follows that process across, the main program, it can feel still very heavy at times, which is why we're working on new exciting updates that we're going to announce and release in October, because our end goal is not turn into every student into a developer per se. We want to give them enough understanding that when they make a decision, it's actually their decision. I think that's what we need to start trying to empathize and nurture and foster on people, because everybody wants to just hear what they need to do. Everybody wants just to be told what to do. And it's one of the first kind of like low for them sometimes. It's like, oh, so no, but what would you do? It's like, I cannot, like, to try to maintain impartiality is not that I'm going to go with nothing, but rather go with different options, various categories of things and products that they could use. So I think there is also, a distinction between everything that you could know and the things that you should understand before taking the responsibility of your own money. So that's what, we're going with the self-custody, and that you would probably should understand. If you're going to go self-custody, you should understand seed phrase, what happens if you lose it. So I think Bitcoin will also probably work similarly for many people like that. Most of us use the internet every day, but we don't really understand IP,
right?
How everything is routed. So I think it's important to just keep fostering curiosity, responsibility on people, and then we do our part on just sharing the knowledge that we have impartially. So everybody, when it makes the decisions, they are informed and they decide which role and part on the network can be, because we need it. Like, it is really important that people understand this more. We need more node runners. Even if you just want to get into a little, like with a B-tax, try to experience it, feel that you have some skin in the game too.
Yeah. Agreed on all of that. Reyna, also, I just want to make sure we can get the best possible video for you. It looked like your camera was breaking up a teeny bit. Not a big deal at all, but I was just going to say, maybe you just want to shut the video off and come back in. And also, like, not the end of the world if it's a little bit glitchy. No big deal at all. Lorena, I want to go over to you. And first of all, thank you again for that, Reyna. I think that was really important, really nuanced, and very insightful. Reyna was saying, we aim to have people become node runners. And I think what comes to mind for us is that oftentimes we're also aiming for people to want to start a mint, right? A Fedi mint or something along those lines, start their own federation, start their own community within the Fedi app. And there's a little bit of a, almost like a nudge you have to give people, because they're used to using other technology, maybe for messaging, or maybe they have another wallet that they use more frequently. And you're saying, well, hey, we kind of built this thing that you can do all of this together within it. It's private, and you could do a few things that are unique to the app. But a lot of times it takes people to actually start getting used to it, to really start to see the power of it. And then those who are a little bit more technologically inclined might be a guardian and might start a Fediment. How do you sort of find that within people? I'm sure you sort of know relatively quickly as you're speaking with people, sort of technologically where they're at, and what you might be able to how you might be able to work with them, what level you might be able to get them to. What is that? What are those interactions like?
Well, as Reyna should know, as Reyna should know, one of the best ways to actually teach something to someone is to approach this new thing and compare it or make a connection with something that they already know, right? So, for an example, in the case of Fedi, as we have a chat, for an example, you can like compare it to WhatsApp, but even better because you can also send money through it, right? In the case of the community custody, it's like a common situation where you can help between each other to take care of the rest of the community, right? So in the case, for an example, of the mini apps, is like having the option of not downloading all the apps that you need, but to have it just in one place. So when you are comparing these frameworks where they are already related to, it's a little bit easier for them to understand what Fedi is and how Fedi works and what you can do with Fedi. So that's the best way to actually approach something that is new, that is different. And in the case of Fedi, that is disrupting all of these different use cases and is offering all of these different models and options to use Bitcoin. I think the best way to do it is to compare it in the regular basis what they are used to use.
Okay. And then maybe, so you compare it, you explain what it enables, and then if people feel so inclined and they have the technical ability, then they go and actually sort of start using it more, or bring a federation to life or something along those lines. Yeah, very, very interesting.
Yeah. And sometimes this hook is so powerful that even if it's not super easy to use, because any technology is not like easy to use in the first moment, right? We all have to adapt somehow. We all have to start learning new things. In the case of internet, in the case of the cell phones, in the case of the apps, everything has a curve of learning. But when you feel attracted to actually use it and test it and try it, then you're on the other side of the road, and then you can start like actually embracing the knowledge that you are acquiring.
Yeah, you need that impetus, right? It's similar to just generally learning about Bitcoin, if there's a desire, like maybe you need to make a cross-border transaction, and Bitcoin is going to be the easiest way to do it. It's like, okay, well, now I have a good reason to actually sit down and learn this thing and understand why this system is actually better than the systems that I had been engaging with. Yeah, very, very good points.
Yeah, I think is making also feel like people more familiar with everything with Bitcoin. Like Lorena said, you put it something related to that they can understand.
Yep.
As an example, as an analogy. But then get familiar as quickly as possible. Like you don't need to learn the whole core of whatever to receive a transaction.
Yeah.
And people can feel that it's like, oh, so it's that easy. They don't know what comes after, but it feels that easy. But it feels that easy.
They don't know what comes after. Yes. Sometimes I wonder if I would have gotten into it if I knew what came after.
Yeah, that's true. You don't want to come with a full bomb, it's just going to like.
Yeah. There was a day I was learning something and how difficult it was, and I remember Shinobi, my old coworker at Bitcoin Magazine. He looked at me. He was just like, "Yep." He's like, "You see it now. Like you see how challenging." But I think it comes down to how far down the rabbit hole you want to go, right? And I think what's also good about that feeling, of the challenges that come with us is that you look back after a few years of learning these things, and most of us, I think, might say, well, I'm not a very technical person, right? I don't have a background in computer science. But all of a sudden, you have found it within yourself to learn things that maybe you wouldn't have learned before. And now you're teaching those
Absolutely.
things to people. And that's the magic of it, really. It's not necessarily that it's difficult and whatever. It's just that, okay, I don't want to give up on this. I really, really like this thing. I think it's important. And I think if it becomes something that's like a catalyst, something that makes people learn and grow as a result, then it's a really, really, really powerful thing. So, really, really important points there. Also, just want to let people know, anyone watching, please feel free to drop questions or comments underneath the stream, or if you could do that on Instagram. I'm not positive on X. I know you can. We'll definitely field one or two questions towards the end of this discussion. But one thing I really wanted to do was have Reyna share maybe one or two major successes that she's had, because sometimes a lot of this feels like we're pushing a big boulder up a mountain, and it can be very challenging. But there are also days where I think we sit back and we say, wow, like it's amazing that I've had that impact, or that somebody learned this thing, or that maybe you hear from a student, someone who was a student of the program, and now they're teaching a whole bunch of people, right? There are these major sort of breakthroughs. And I'm wondering, Rena, on your side, in terms of connecting with people, what are one or two major things you've learned, or one or two major successes that you've had over the years now?
I think this is something that we also underestimate. You're talking about like the numbers and successes. It goes exactly what you said. I keep saying, like, oh, I'm not a super technical person, but no, I know now that I'm more familiar with a lot of technical stuff, way more than it was even like 2 years ago. So I think one of the biggest, lessons, and I in also cases of successes on other people has seen that they keep learning more, and then like that, it's to me success, like they get curious enough. So I still keep learning that every week behind the scenes. Is like, we don't need to start to trying to impress everyone with Bitcoin, every new one. Not everyone has the same curiosity, not the learning type, so we need to adapt. And when we start with just one of the person in front of us, and to tell them how things work with we would say little knowledge, but it's still a lot of knowledge that um, anyone who's interested in learning and the good news, and then eventually the not so good news, will get interested on it. And I like, just like the phrase, right, like from Spider-Man, like with great power comes great responsibility. I also think that Bitcoin is not for anyone. We were having this English and Spanish conversation the other day. How does this translate? That Bitcoin is for not for everyone, but for anyone. And I was like, how will that translate to Spanish? I understand what you mean, because some of the major breakthroughs, and I think also cases of success that I look back and I'm like, oh, that's great. Like that person kept working and kept learning, has been when they individually decided to empower themselves, take the knowledge that they receive through a shorter and very beginner program like the Bitcoin Diploma, for example, or an intro class. And then when I have conversations with them now, are just like way more advanced than would have been. And I think that part of the learning is what gives you real empowerment. When you feel like, oh wow, yeah, I kind of got that. Like that clicked for me, and it gives you this confidence on yourself that you can learn, that you
Yep.
can put things into practice. And this is just only one topic. So what else you can do? As I think the three of us here, if it's something that we share, is that we do have life, but besides Bitcoin, and goals and dreams, and things that we'd like to achieve for ourselves. And one of those come with personal achievements and professional achievements. And when these two things join, it's incredibly rewarding. It's incredibly rewarding to see something that I'm basically get paid to do as a job. And I just get like, I'm really lucky, because I don't hate my job like a lot of people. And these individual persons, the impact that we're having on them are the most important ones to spread the words to. It's not having a huge amount of numbers, is that even if it's just 10 or if it's just 100, but it's definitely going to replicate because they have learned well. We try to foster them curiosity and responsibility. And so the way that they're going to go and share it with others and teach others are going to be in that same way, sort
Yep.
of. It's going to be an example. They don't need to tell exactly what we say or, just copy paste,
Right.
but they go and feeling capable of continuing to learning without us.
Yep.
And they are comfortable to do the research. So she still doesn't know. It's like our objective shouldn't be to prove how much we know as teachers.
Totally.
For that. So I think that's the most rewarding part for me.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Reyna. Thank you. Yeah, there's the empowerment side of this. I want to reiterate that point, is that it's not just a matter of the financial empowerment. It's the idea that what else can I do? And it was funny. I had a conversation with someone from Bitcoin Akazi 2 or 3 days ago, and he joined the Bitcoin Akazi community. He's one of the community leaders there now. He teaches kids to swim and surf in the Surfer Kids nonprofit. Let's go. She's got her Bitcoin Akazi shirt. Shout out to Bitcoin Akazi. But he said to me, one of the things they teach the kids there is that surfing is hard, and Bitcoin is a little bit hard right now too, and that's okay. Like we're going to learn how to do these hard things and then feel good as a result because we learned how to do these things. But this one guy is now training he wants to compete in an Ironman World Championship, and I asked him, I said, do you think that you felt this would be possible if you hadn't kind of joined this community and learned everything you had learned? It was just a hard no. Of course it wouldn't have. So I think that ideally here, what we see is not just everybody learns Bitcoin, everybody gets rich and everything else. That's not the point. We want to see the best of human beings come to life, right? We want to see this become something that is a platform and a catalyst for people to become the best versions of themselves. So I appreciate that take very much, Reyna. Thank you. Lorena, I want to talk a little bit about pro tips from the Fedi perspective as well. What comes to mind here is I'm spacing out is our friend Wen. I think she does a really good job managing Wen Lopez, who manages a really cool kind of community within the Fedi app, and she's a technology pro. It's funny with Wen, Reyna, I was laughing because you mentioned it's like we have lives outside of Bitcoin, but some of us work a lot of hours, and oftentimes we don't have much time for our life outside of it. But ideally, we have time for life outside of Bitcoin.
All our fantasies we do.
That's right. That's right. So I wanted to, Lorena, some pro tips from you. I mentioned this earlier, even for me personally, I think Fedi was great. It was like technology that I saw from afar. I was like, oh, that's great. But I didn't really get it until I started using it. And then you start seeing what you can do with it. And I'm kind of curious, what do you see tends to click for people? Is it when they start a community space and they could start putting mini apps in their community or sending money via private message? Like, what do you think it is that mostly makes the light bulb go off for Fedi users?
For an example, in the case of the people that is building their communities inside Fedi, we are in a very interesting moment in history about technology that can break things, but can also build things. And a lot of people is right now experimenting, with AI and with all these capabilities of building their own tools. So, for an example, in the case of the community builders, where they can have their own apps, where they can have their own customized value offer for their communities, is Fedi, right? Yep. Because sometimes it takes a long time for you to be able to list an app, for an example, in a common app store. But here you can just like have your own space with your own apps. If you're already like vibe coding, and if you're already bringing some value to your community, you can have everything in one place, and you don't need to have like a website or a blog or whatever. You can just like download the app, start a community, and then just start dropping all the things that you want to give to your community there. In the case of the users, when they find a community that is paired to their thinking, paired to what they need, paired to what they are expecting to understand, to learn, or to share with others, it's like a magical moment, because you can see how everything just flows with the interactions that happen inside the community.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Lorena. Yeah, I think that is a big thing. It was funny. One of the first community spotlight pieces I wrote was with the team from Harlem Bitcoin, and to get to know what they were doing better, I had connected with them on Fedi, and now that's just naturally where we communicate with one another. They're friends of mine from a while back. I used to communicate with them through Telegram and some other apps, but now we just use Fedi. So I think it's a matter of just getting used to it, seeing what it's capable of. Excellent. So yeah, just one more note to the audience. We are willing to take a question or two if we get them, but actually, let me go over to the producer just to double check in. Mary, if we have any questions, feel free to bring them up on the bottom of the screen. Oh, we got a few questions queued from what I've just been told. I think we have 3, so let's try to get to these quickly then. So how do you decide what level of technical depth is enough for beginners without overwhelming them? I think that's a great question. I'll let Reyna field this one.
It comes very much by, understanding them. Like, you need to listen to people first. You need to, even as if we want to put an example, even as an interview, you're hiring someone to, I don't know, be a nurse or something, but it's someone that just graduated, and you're like, okay, so what can you do? How do you feel comfortable with this? Do you feel comfortable? How much, like, are you knowledgeable about computers, cell phones? How do you feel? So and so, like, it goes a very, like, to the basics. So to a beginner level, how much technicality? It's, in my opinion, okay, what is the most basic thing that we do on Bitcoin? Send and receive transactions on Lightning, actually. And then, okay, can you do that? How do you feel? How many times you've done it? And then, oh yeah, you can just kind of get the impressions on people by just asking questions and then letting them go through them with you. That's how I would say I do. There's no straight playbook about how, because every case is different. Every person learns differently.
Yep.
If someone tells me, like Mama Rosa in El Salvador, in El Salto, for example, she doesn't know how to read. So I can kind of understand what her level is going to be. She knows how to manage certain things, but I'm not going to put her mastering Bitcoin in front of her, right? the book. So, okay, what do you need to know? And then we have this very nice guy who's also a local, and he receives Bitcoin for his board rents, for some of his tenants. And I can see that he's on a custody wallet, like hot wallet on his phone, and it's just kind of like, now it's adding up. And it's like, you have quite a decent amount of Bitcoin over there. Why don't we try to, like, move it now to a hardware wallet? And he's very honest with him. It's like, yeah, but I barely understand the things. Like, he has an iPhone because he really likes it, but he barely knows how to navigate with it. So it's like, just get my son on into it, and I'm like, we're gonna get you, the two of you, so you can understand how it works, at least. It's like, and then people is not interested enough. So ask the questions, see how they, behave in general with the rest of the technology, cell phones, computers, AI, what they think. With AI these days is, for the positive notes, you can learn anything. The same way that YouTube was already there, Google was already there. Again, keep verifying, right? Because even with AI, now we're gonna get into the level of we all should run our own AI, like it should be open. And I'm like, I'm barely getting here, guys.
It's like, come on, one thing at a time.
One thing at a time. And also understand your levels of technicalities too. Like, don't try. We should be very comfortable with saying I don't know.
Yes,
and just
totally.
Someone, just don't be too proud. It's like, oh yeah, nah. Like, it's someone's money also that is good. You're risking, right?
Totally, 100%. And when you brought up mastering Bitcoin, I was like, forget about this poor woman. Don't put that book in front of me, like the person who does this for a living. All right.
I know. I tried to look again because of the big 110. I was like,
I have it in my room. It scares me. I look at it and we have like we stare at each other for a little bit, and then I leave the room because I get nervous. So I have to
and then you put it under another book that you actually like.
Yeah, exactly. It's there because I wouldn't be a Bitcoiner without it, but I have to stay protected from it because it frightens me too much. Yeah.
That was my first Bitcoin book, but actually I couldn't understand a thing about what it was saying.
100%.
So actually, lucky me, I had like a somebody that was like driving me to this Bitcoin path and
Yeah.
explaining to me like every page. But at this moment I cannot understand like
Yeah.
many things there, a lot
Yes.
of things.
And it's even
Yeah.
like the white paper. The first time you read the white paper, did it make sense? No. I read it every once in a while all over again because it's shorter. It's like, oh, one thing more interesting,
Yeah,
but
that's it,
still
right?
it
Yeah.
doesn't. So maybe
Yeah.
that's a parameter. Do you
Yeah.
understand the white paper? No. Okay. Just go back to the basic.
100%, and it's good because it is incremental, right? There are these things, maybe these things you hear over and over, or you hear people talking about them, and then one day it clicks, and that's the magic of it. And I think to Reina's point, you don't have to force that does not have to be forced. I
Yeah.
wouldn't go and suggest, like, for example, I've seen a lot of people saying go out and use this multi-sig now or something. There's a lot of danger that could come with that. I think one
Mhm.
of the really cool things, and again, obviously this is a Fedi show, I don't mean to be shilling, but I think one of the nice things about what we're trying to do is sort of hold people's hand through the process of learning something if you want to learn something. I think that's a really big piece to the equation. Obviously, this is a piece to what My First Bitcoin does, and then the educators that you're educating and teaching how to teach about Bitcoin, they're doing this as well. But again, with all of this stuff, please do it on a timeline that makes sense to you, that you're comfortable with, because I think oftentimes people give up on Bitcoin because they feel that it gets too overwhelming. But it's really up to you how much of the information you want to let in, like how much of that valve you want to try to open. And if you're dealing with other life stuff and it's completely overwhelming, then maybe it's not time to open the Bitcoin valve. Use it for what you need to use it for, learn the basics, but maybe take a step back from it and don't overwhelm yourself. For the sake of time, I don't want to actually, no, let's try to get to these last two questions. Mary, if we could bring up the next one, that would be fantastic. Awesome. Where do you think community custody works best? I will go to Lorena for that one.
Well, in communities where something natural happens, people has to relay in somebody else, and this happens like naturally in all the communities, and I'm very sure that Reina has experienced this. All the communities that she has approached rely on Reina and rely on My First Bitcoin for the education, right? So all of us naturally as humans rely on somebody else for something. So in communities where it's very difficult to actually manage their own funds or to keep them safe, maybe this is a solution for them. And I think that's the best scenario that Fedi could be very, very useful.
Yeah, I think that is a really great point. And even in places like New York and the state, rugged individualism and all this stuff, people rely on each other all the time, and they ask each other questions, and they learn from each other, and they teach each other, and all of this kind of stuff. So I think that it's almost like a little bit, in some cases, it's a practice of just getting over yourself a little bit and saying, you know what, I'm already working with other people about this. Here's a tool where that's required, but I'm already doing that to some extent. So that's a great answer. I appreciate that, Lorena. Thank you. We had a final question here. We'll get ready to land the plane after that. What parts of Bitcoin do you think beginners really need to understand early on? Let's go to Reyna first, and I'll go over to Lorena after.
The parts that I think they need to understand early on are the trade-offs of everything. That is very important. I mean, banks, especially these days, everything on the apps of all the banks makes it easy. Like it makes it very smooth now for you to use with tap pay with your phone. You can connect everything, and then they just go, they just discount your bills. So what's the trade-off to that? What's the trade-off of using Bitcoin? What's the trade-off to privacy, to less privacy? So very early on, I think it's uh, besides what money is and how it works, is exactly how those trade-offs work. Because you can keep using and having, even not just money, not just fiat, dollars, euros. You can have a stock and all of that, because a lot of these days people, I mean, when we talk about money and elites and stuff, and everybody goes and things like, like Elon Musk and the trillionaire and stuff, it's like, you gotta understand that these people do not have that in liquid cash.
Just
It's
trillion dollars sitting around.
just
Yeah.
your piece on that, Frank, actually was really cool. I really liked
Thank
you put a post of how it actually works. It made me understand, yes, exactly how this works. And I have it saved actually. I share it
Thank
with
you.
when people that goes all crazy about money. I'm like,
Yeah.
money is not a bad thing. It's a tool. You can
Yeah.
use it. It's important for you to, if you want to have, more purchasing power. That's totally valid and okay.
Yep.
You need to understand what are you giving up for, what are you learning for, what are you taking instead.
Yep.
That's to me the most important part.
I have to say, I really, that's like, it almost brings tears to my eyes. It makes me emotional, that part, because I think the one thing that the traditional education system has not done a very good job of in general is teaching that life is just a series of trade-offs. And I'm not trying to get too profound or prolific here, but that idea of trusting someone to say, hey, look, no solution is perfect. Here's what Bitcoin does. Here's what a bank does. Here's what a traditional system does. Here's what this new system does.
Exactly.
And I think trusting people to understand that, it makes them trust you more, because you're not coming to them saying, I have this, so this is the thing that will fix your whole life, or this is the best thing ever created. You're just simply saying, like, this is what this does, that this other thing does. And you leave the decision up to them, which is part of that empowerment process, I think.
Yeah, it's amazing how many times you still have to remind people, if it sounds too good to be true, it's not true.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. 100%. Lorena, any thoughts on that last one?
I just want to highlight two words that Reyna mentioned that are the base of Fedi ethos, of Fedi mission, and its privacy, and also the freedom, right?
Yep. 100%. Yeah. So the freedom, the privacy that Fedi offers, the freedom to transact that Bitcoin offers, these are really important things that I think also. One thing I think we often lose sight of is, because the internet and the idea of privacy online, these are all relatively new concepts to most people. When you bring up, Reyna, you mentioned it earlier, most people don't know how the internet works. To them, it's basically magic. So they're just thinking, well, magically my text ends up on my friend's phone and it's all magic, and I don't really think twice about this stuff. But we are going to move into an era where I think that especially privacy will come to mean more and more to people. But we're early on with this stuff. So I think, again, to highlight the work that both of you do, it's extremely important, because I think there's a big sort of psychological element to this, a big psychological shift that's underway. And it's not just going to happen from people yelling about it online. It's going to happen from people having conversations, from people holding hands, and then being there to answer questions when necessary. So to both of you, I commend the work that you do. I admire it, appreciate it. It was such a pleasure to have you both on. And maybe just some final thoughts before we wrap it up, and where people can find you both online, and where people can find My First Bitcoin.
Sure. Thank you, Frank. Likewise, I admire your work, guys. It's one of the parts that I feel more just like related with Fedi too, the sense of community. It's just so important. It's just so important these days. When everybody, like, they ask me what is, like the most important for more women in Beacon, I'm like, community. We just need more, because we are just so getting isolated. And I catch myself doing that very often, because you work on a space where everybody's calling each other's names.
Yep.
Don't focus on that. Focus on when you can do good to others. So just quickly, you can find My First Bitcoin, myfirstbitcoin.org as a website. If you want to learn, if you want to teach with us too, please find our socials. Feel free to join one of the classes of the many cohorts that are going around the world. And then if you feel entitled to learn with us through how to become a more confident educator, we want to be there for you too. And myself, I am Reyna Chicas 2, number 2. Yeah.
In my mind, you're number 1, Reyna, but her handle is Reyna Chicas.
Thank you, Frank. Yes.
Lorena, please tell me if I'm mistaken. When you download Fedi, another place to find My First Bitcoin is it's one of the default mini apps that you get as a Fedi user, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. And I invite all the people to see all the amazing job that My First Bitcoin is doing globally. They are not just building an educational system for people, they are also enabling the possibility of people to teach and to learn and to share with others what they have acquired in this process with My First Bitcoin. So please join Fedi with the mini app of My First Bitcoin, learn more about My First Bitcoin, try Fedi, try the communities, And thank you very much. You can follow me also as Lore Bitcoin in almost all my social media, but TikTok.
Amazing. Appreciate that. Thank you both again so much. Thank you to Mary, our producer, and thank you to everybody who tuned in. Next week, we will be back with Ayobami, who is our Nigeria Community Night, and we'll be joined by someone, the founder of TapKnob, another Fedi mini app. So please come back with us next week, Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Again, ladies, thank you so much. Thank you to everybody for listening. We'll talk soon. Take it easy, everybody.